Welcome to Falcons Ledge, I'm Stringer, and you are watching an unboxing of the Winwing Orion F16 joystick. I only received the joystick. Tomorrow I should be getting the throttle, so we'll do this kind of in two parts, but it'll be in the same video. Anyway, so we're going to start with the grip itself. So we'll move the gimbal out of the way. I did open these beforehand so I wouldn't have to use a knife. Let's pull this out. I'm excited about this. Haven't had an F16 stick since the Thrustmaster Warthog. This did come double boxed, by the way. This is just the inner box. We'll yeet that over there. And it looks like we've got some good foam. These are nice and well packed in here. Doesn't look like these things can move at all. So we'll pull that out of there. And that looks like it. So we'll move that out of the way. Alright, so starting with the smaller package, this appears to be the extension. I believe that's the shake kit as well. I know that this is a secondary trigger, which that's interesting. Curious to find out if that thing has a event that occurs when you flip it up and flip it down. That's pretty cool. I know that the Gunfighter does that. Alright, yeah, it looks like that installs with simple 2 screws, which I'm assuming are in here. Yep. Cable and 2 screws and some Allen wrenches that I'm not going to use. Alright, so that's that. We'll move that out of the way. Well, let's take a look. You know, these hats don't feel exactly the same as the ones that are on the Orion throttle. They're a little bit squishier, and they don't have that nice tactile. Was that one a... No, I don't think that one's an analog stick. It might be. That one definitely has a click to it. This one might be an analog stick. Looking inside there, yeah, I think this one appears to be an analog stick, and this one is a hat, but still it doesn't have quite the same feel to it as the buttons on the throttle. All right, let's move on to the stick. So move this out of the way here. And this, by the way, is made of plastic. Oh, the QC passed. Well, aren't we glad that that passed? That's great. So let's open this thing up. I can tell just feeling through it that it is definitely metal, which I knew already, but let's carefully pull that out of here. And looks like we got a peel on the trigger. Not exactly ASMR level stuff, but there is a peel. The thing that gets me is when I see people with peels that are ages old and dirt's got underneath them, and they thought that they were leaving it on there to protect their equipment, but what it turned out doing is trapping dirt between the peel and the equipment and totally destroying it. I used to, long ago, I worked at Geek Squad, and I would see things like that come in where there had been laptops that had been used for, 10 years, and they had never removed the peel. And it was disgusting. All right. Sorry for the tangent. All right. So stick feels really good in the hand. The texture is not quite as premium feeling as, say, the Gunfighter. But the metal, it feels good in hand. And I know that there's a lot of people who are really big into metal sticks. I'm not really one of them. I think that metal sticks are great. I have nothing against them. I think they're wonderful. I just don't think that it is the hallmark of a high quality stick to have it be metal when you can use just as high quality buttons and switches and electronics inside of a high quality ABS stick. And I think they feel great. In fact, being in my office, this thing is pretty cold. So that's a thing, you're holding on to it, especially in the wintertime, and it gets cold. Now, I want to quickly compare. This they do seem to have just a slightly different feel to them. I don't know. Maybe they're exactly the same. Maybe this is in my head. But Winwing does have good feeling hats. I like the feel of their hats. They do have a little bit of squishiness to it, or a little bit of give when you're pushing against it. But then once it engages, you can hear it right here. I'm going to bring it up to the mic. I'll do the trigger pull. Yeah, that, here, I'll bring the mic in here. That trigger does have a really nice feedback. And you can see that when the secondary part of the trigger is engaged, you can actually see where that happens, and you certainly feel it. So that's nice to have too. This, I'm hoping that is an analog, because I'm not feeling any engagement whatsoever. So we'll see about that. But I think it's probably analog with the way that moves. Yeah, that moves quite a bit. And it doesn't feel like the other buttons. So it looks like they've gone to a hat here too. Each one of the hats looks like they have a center click. Nice. And this is a cover that goes over the connector, and it looks like the type of connector used is a PS4 or similar, like a Thrustmaster. That's very nice. That is quite the click for an engagement of that trigger. All right, now we're going to move on to the gimbal. So I'm actually going to bring this back out, put this down in here real quick. And just for storage purposes, my office is horrible right now, and I don't want to have that getting lost. So let's bring up the gimbal. And let's take a look at what we have in here. Again, this is only a single box, but the foam is pretty well utilized. And I do keep all of these boxes because, inevitably I'm going to end up, having to sell some of the equipment that I have to use other equipment for review. All right, so what we have in here, these are cams and springs. These are suction cups, which I don't recommend anyone ever using. Desk mounting this level of joystick it's not a good idea. Look, I will test it on the desk. All right, I'll test it on the desk. But I'm going to tell you it's not good. I've got mounts, so I'm not going to like desktop sticks. I do have one qualm. Let's pull this thing out of here. Okay, that's different. I do have one qualm, and that would be that this kit right here costs an extra $50. On some of the other sticks on the market, like the Gunfighter, it comes with these things. It's just a thing. All right, and it looks like we also have the dampers right here. So this is the damping kit. I believe this also comes with that $50. I will be using these in a couple of different ways, and I'm actually going to put them in here. These are used if you want your stick to stay where it is. But it can also be used similar to clutches, but you do need to lubricate these to get that to happen, and I'll show you why. But let's pull this out of here. Ooh, that's in there nice and tight. Wow, this thing's a beast. Okay, I'm going to take out in the bottom. Yep, I knew we had something else in here. Here is the bottom plate. Feels pretty good. It is fairly small, which means that it's probably, if you just set it on your desktop, probably not going to be enough, especially if you use any kind of spring or damping in there. But, that's why they include those suction cups. I would imagine the suction cups probably aren't going to work unless you got a desk that's really well suited for them, which I do not. My desk is kind of terrible and is not well suited to that. I plan on going to a cockpit sometime, but we're still working on that. This is another thing I added on for $50. And I'm not upset about it costing $50 because that's pretty competitive with everyone else in the market. Let's move this over for a moment. This is the extension. And it's kind of a neat extension because one thing that I am dealing with is that I have a 200mm extension with an MCG Ultimate from VKB. And it's just a bit long. It actually puts the joystick up in my lap, which you don't want. You want the stick to be between your legs. You don't want it to be up high where you're reaching up to it. And I'm going to have to relocate that to the floor if I want to keep using that. So this one extends and retracts, but you got to be careful because it's got this wire in here. Yeah, just like that. And this wire looks like it goes all the way through. This is just a good old hollow tube. Well, that's one thing that's kind of irritating, right? Is that you got to run that through. Yep, and got to try to snake it in there. But, you know, each thing a bit different than another. But it's nice because you can adjust the length of this out to this length or as short as this length. And I'll play around with that. I'll play around with different lengths on it and I'll let you guys know what I think. Move that out of the way. Put our Allen wrenches aside. Basic run-of-the-mill USB cable. I've actually had some USB cables go bad, and you can really tell the difference between junky cables and expensive cables by the feel of their insulation. This is a fairly cheap cable. Companies, please send better cables with your stuff. I've actually had several USB cables just like this one fail, and then I have to go out and spend money on a decent cable. All right, let's look at the main attraction. What you say? A lot of people are thinking, I think that the grip is the main attraction. That's the thing you hold on to. Yes, you're right about that. However, this beastie is what puts all of your inputs into the system. This is what creates the feel. This is very important. And I actually, this feels nice and easy to move around, but it also is not dampened at all. Don't worry, I'm going to fix that. You guys know me. I do like a little bit of a dampened stick. Damped stick, as some pointed out. But I really want to get in here and take a look at this thing. From what I understand, it is held together with only 4 screws. And I'm hoping that I'm not doing the wrong ones here. I guess we'll find out soon, huh? I didn't notice any instructions in the box. I assume that they're online, but I'm just going to go ahead and take the dive and see. If this is a really long screw, I've pulled the wrong one. Nope. We have probably got the right screw. I do like having things be accessible easily, but 4 screws, it's not exactly something that's revolutionary. The VKB Gunfighter, for example, also uses 4 screws. The difference being the Gunfighter, the 4 screws go through the entire case, and that kind of area where it grips is also the same area where it mounts. And the Gunfighter, boy, when I do the comparison video between these two, you will be astounded at how much smaller and more compact the Gunfighter is. Now, there's advantages to that for sure, but it's not all advantageous because the Gunfighter has an external module that runs it. There we have that. Look at that. There is the gimbal. All right. And this is what I keep telling people. If If you want a high quality device and you want a device that's going to last you, you aren't going to get that with a plastic gimbal. And it looks like this is a high quality device. Of course, once I put it through its paces and really beat up on it, that's going to really tell the tale now, isn't it? So it's an interesting design. They've made a design that is mirrored, basically. So they've taken the shaft that comes out the end that interfaces with the cams via this bearing right there. And they've extended that through to the other side. And what that allows you to do, it allows you to add another set of springs, for one, if you wanted something stiffer. But you can also add something like this, which is goes on there like that, tightens down right here. That's going to create friction, because this is going to turn with this. And that is how you're going to get dampening. So they've done that on both sides, so you can see that we have that on both axes, the X and the Y. Looks like it's got a very robust frame with nice large bearings. Large bearings are nice because if you have a larger bearing, it's going to wear slower than a smaller bearing given the same load. And the larger bearing is going to be able to take a larger load. So if you're running extensions, if you're running a heavy stick, which, by the way, this thing is heavy. I'm going to put when we do the comparison, we'll compare this to the Gunfighter. It really, really could be heavier than the Gunfighter. But we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, this thing does feel like it is quite robust. The workmanship of the parts inside are not beautiful, but they are functional, we'll say. So when you compare this to something like the Gunfighter, the way that the Gunfighter's parts are inside, it's quite, the manufacturing is different. As well as Virpil works kind of the same way. Now, how are we dealing with the flex? Well, we do see some movement of cable in there when we move that. But it looks like they might have enough space that this isn't going to get pinched even at full deflection. Whew, that is a bit close. The wires in here feel like they have a coating on them that's going to allow for some flexibility without breaking, so that's good. All right, so let's get this thing put together. All right, so now we're going to put on these dampers. And I actually wanted to go and watch a video to make sure that I was doing these right, because there was no installation instructions that came with it. But I was able to find a short video of them talking about it. And when I found the video of them talking about it, I could see how they were oriented there. And it was different than I thought. So I had to do a quick edit and come back and look. So from what I can see, they removed this screw. Yep, there we go. So as you can see inside, we have something that looks the opposite of this. Okay, so that's going to sit down in here. Yep, that'll sit down in there. We'll take this screw, and it looks like that, nope, washer does not fit. So we're going to just take the screw, put it down in there. Did I use the wrong one? Let's check. Yep, this one's the right one. The screw that they provide you is a little bit longer, just so you're aware. So we will put this in here. exactly. Okay. So this thing is going to, we got to find where it seats in there. We did. That is something to watch out for. Is this piece coming out? And that's going to sit down in there. This will come up and what I'll do is I'll just use another Allen wrench, kind of hold that steady as we screw it in from the other side. Once it really gets started, it won't be a big issue. We can take that out of there. And this thing is going to go in here. Since this is also what's going to hold that in. All right, now you can see that this wheel-shaped thing is now riding inside of this clutch. Right? And then if we want to increase damping force, we use the correct Allen wrench, of course. We would then turn this. I like to kind of go by like quarter turns, half turns. Yeah, see, I'm already feeling exactly what some other people have talked about, and that is that the cam or the damper is not smooth. And here's the thing. It was designed to be used where it would hold your stick where you put it. So it's not surprising that it's a little bit hard. But we have a way around that. We'll deal with that later. So we'll do the same thing here. These are actually designed, you can see that they have setups here to handle dual spring, dual cam. So you would have 4 cams and 2 springs per axis. And that is, of course, for extensions and the like. However, and again, this is going to be a bit of a complaint. And why is there, I seem to be missing a screw hole, and that can't go in that way. So are we going to have to, or can this be reversed? I think it can be. Let's loosen this up and flip that over. Yeah, both sides appear to be the same. So in theory, there's no reason why I couldn't do this. This one has 2 holes here. This axis, which is the y-axis, only has 1. So we're going to want to orient that in that way. Make sure that we haven't lost our nut. Over here, we're looking okay. I'm going to bring this in here. Nope, we got our nut still. This one looks like it's retained a little bit. Okay, we'll line up our screw. Come in and install this one. Tighten this one up so it's snug. Okay, Now we'll check our, I'm sorry, this was the x-axis. So it doesn't appear to be any bite at all. Okay, so let's see how this thing feels with it configured in this manner. We will stow these. You don't want to lose them. We'll install this back the way that it goes. We will hand tight these because we're going to be taking it off again in a minute. Because I can tell you how something's going to feel in game just by feeling it here on the desk. Well, outside of, sensitivity of its sensors, we're talking about the fluidity and the feel of the gimbal itself, right? Okay, I'm familiar with how this connector works because I've had Thrustmaster sticks before. So we'll take this off. Let me make sure that this will, yeah, it will, okay. This is going to go in just like that. Now, just so you know, when I get this thing tightened up, I'll show you. Okay, so there is a jam nut here. And when you put this on, you are going to want, when you're actually using it, you are going to want to have that jam nut tight. There we are. All right. Well, it's still off center. Good enough. I'm going to be taking some of it apart anyway. Okay. So it looks like we still got a lot of wobble in here. I like things to be a bit smoother. It does feel like there's less deflection. I believe this deflection is 17 degrees. I don't know for sure because I don't know the exact deflection angles for the Gunfighter. But it feels like the Gunfighter has a bit more deflection angle. So let's tighten up those clutches and let's see how they feel. These screw holes are not machined precisely. You can see they're getting shavings everywhere. My word. Yeah, there does seem to be some oddities about these screw holes and things. They're a little on the rough side. Okay, we have this out a bit. Now we're just going to come in here and we are going to use the correct Allen wrench. In doing so, we are going to take this and we are going to do a full half turn. And I definitely felt that tighten up. So we're going to come in here again. We're going to do a half turn. Okay. Let's see how this feels. Now I'm just going to hold base on. Ha! See, now we still have nothing on there, but this is like Hard, hard, hard. Well, all right then. So obviously on our y-axis, we need to back off about a quarter of a turn. Okay, quarter of a turn back on the y-axis. Quarter of a turn forward on the x-axis. Okay, let's see how this feels now. Carefully get it back into the case. Hold the case. That's a bit better, but again, there's like little... Yeah, I can see exactly what... It's almost, well, okay, it is, because the damper is not greased. It's not specifically made to operate like this. And the x-axis one is still loose. Look how tight that is, and it's still not biting. Let's make sure that it's not turning... Well, that would explain it. I don't think they were tight here. This is turning without the metal turning. Tighten that up, and then I'm going to drop back a quarter of a turn on the x-axis and see if that's changed our situation. Yeah, it feels very hitchy. The Y feels like it has the right amount of tension. The X still feels like it's too much. This is just a matter of adjustment. And this is exactly what I do with my Gunfighter when I'm getting its clutches in order. I want rebound with no flop, 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 flop. It isn't because that particular behavior is desirable. It's specifically because in my experience of using these things, that just seems to be the right amount of damping. Okay, so that one's feeling better. But again, as I'm moving this, it feels particularly right there. What is going on there? Let's take a look to see what's happening. It's almost like there's not enough preload in that gimbal. See that? And the difference here, there's less movement there. And see arc, no center. Maybe that has something to do with it. Well, let's grease these. And what we're looking to do to get out of doing this is we're looking to get a slightly dampened experience when we're using the clutch, but we don't want it to, really slow down our ability to use the axis itself. And we're just going to double check that these screws are tight enough here. Okay. Now what I'm going to use is 767A Nyogel. It doesn't take much. Doesn't take much at all. This stuff is fairly thick. But I'm just going to put a little drop on there and come around and wipe it. This is damping grease or dampening grease, but it is grease. What that's going to do, we'll put this clutch back on and we'll turn it around and get that grease spread around there. That is going to help that to move. It will still help in damping, right? It'll still help in damping. It is damping grease, but it's going to smooth out the whole process of. Okay, so I'm going to just start there. You might be asking yourself, well, if this is a problem, which, I don't know if you'd call it a problem. I'm actually going to put the grease on the inside of the clutch this time. I don't think it really matters. I got a bunch of it on my finger. if this is such a problem, why didn't they have this from the factory? Well, it is a factor of this isn't precisely the way they intended this to be used. So that's why I'm doing it, because I want to. And I want to have this particular feel. But I'm not going to hold this against them because, as I mentioned, it isn't intended to be this way. Furthermore, in addition to that, it's not going to be the same use case for everybody. Not everyone's going to be using this and have a preference of it feeling the way that I prefer it to feel. But too much Y, not enough X. All right. So let's again tighten down X, back off on the Y by quarter of a turn. Okay, how are we on the Y? It's still not centering. We may have to use a harder springs. Back off a quarter. Back off a half. Okay, so we've just gone past where we like it, and it looks like the X is finally right where we want it. We want it to maybe just a slight bit more, but not even like an eighth. On the Y, we want just a bit more than a quarter. Okay. Still, that was a bit too much there. We'll work that grease in. We'll back off about an eighth turn. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. See that? It comes back into the center without any rebound. And again, that it isn't about that behavior specifically. It's that I know that sticks that I've used in the past have been perfectly dampened or perfectly damped, whichever term you want to use, when they rebound to the center quickly, but without any rebound. All right. So that's going to be it for the stick. We're going to do some gameplay, but I'm going to wait until we have the throttle. So I'll see you tomorrow when we have the throttle. All right. So now we are going to do the throttle. And we'll start with the grip, just like we did with the stick. These were double boxed. I opened the first box and took it out to make sure I knew which one was which, and also just to make it so that I wouldn't have to break into them with a knife, which I'm going to use a knife anyway, just so that we don't break anything. I like to keep the boxes in really good condition. I never know if I'm going to decide that I need to sell these things to, get the next item, or whether I'm going to keep them or what, so I keep all the boxes. All right, so first thing we see is going to be this beautifully machined guide plate. It looks like it's got a second piece that's adhered to that. It's got the engine off detent, the idle arc, the afterburner detent, and then the afterburner arc. Pretty cool. It is about 15 degrees outside, so that's pretty cold. As most of this is going to be, because as you may well be aware, Winwing's equipment is pretty much all metal. Looks like we got the corner brackets here. We'll take these down. We've got our screw kit. Looks like it's got a couple bearing wheels. And some Allen keys, which we are not going to have to worry about because I have better ones. Looks like we've got a wrench and some Allen keys there. And some stick-on rubber feet, which I'll probably not have to use because I'm going to be mounting this. I will mess around with a little bit on a desk just to give you guys an impression of how it behaves, but the truth of it is, these things, if you're paying as much as these things cost, get mounts for them, even if they're cheap. It'll make a big difference for you. Moving on. So like we've got rails. I believe that these are the back rails, these are the bottom rails, but we'll see. As is custom, there is no instructions. But it's okay. I'm pretty decent at figuring these things out. And there's our grip. Let's make sure there's nothing else in the box. There isn't. All right. We'll yeet that over there. I do have dogs in the room with me today. And the birds. So there could be some rustling around, and I apologize for that in advance. But that's just something we'll have to deal with now, isn't it? That is a rather beefy stick. You don't always realize quite how big it is until you get it in hand. And it's very cold. There's speed brake. Our dogfight switch. Antenna elevation. Manual range and uncage. Comms button is what that looks like. Our comms hat. All right. Nice. All right, so let's proceed to assemble these things really quickly. I've thought of just speeding up a lot of the assembly, and perhaps I'll do that with this video. So if it's been sped up, I guess that question's answered for you, huh? But some people like to be walked through things slowly. I have an enormous pile of garbage that's off screen right here. Just all of the packing stuff, because after doing the stick, I didn't clean up. So usually I pack them all into their boxes and have them all ready if I, like I said, if I choose to sell them or whatever. Because in order to keep bringing you guys content, I've got to keep getting equipment, right? It's kind of how things work. So, based upon what we can see on the box, these are the base. These are the risers, and these will attach on here. All right. So obviously this rail here is going to be what slides onto the throttle itself, and there. These things are going to come in this way. So in order to make that work, we just loosen these up, and these do look symmetric or symmetrical. So once we've loosened that up, that bolt should slide in. Looks like we've got to do some more. We'll take it all the way down. Once we can get that aligned, it should go in. Yes, perfect. Okay, now that we've got those in there, I'm going to take a guess that they are this size. Ta-da! And I'm just going to twist those on like that to get us started. Again, we're just going to loosen this up to its extent is what's going to be most effective. It's just going all the way down. Okay. If it is not agreeing with you, give it some pressure by your thumb and ensure that it has enough space to slide in. There we are. And again, this is not adjusted to where it should be. This is just finger tight by twisting like so. Okay. Obviously, we are going to need our rails. The rails are obviously going to go this way because these things are made to slide over these nuts. Sometimes you have to twist slightly. Sometimes I watch some videos just to see what other reviewers notice about said sticks that I'm going to be reviewing, so that I can be on the lookout for those things, because I want to pick up on everything that I pick up on just naturally, right? But I also want to pick up on and analyze what other people have seen and see what my opinion is of those particular things. And so I've watched a few videos of people talking about these, and a couple of them had installation or assembly videos on them, and I watched tiny pieces of them. But it amazes me that people certainly have different levels of mechanical adeptness, I suppose you could call it, or different levels of being a mechanically adept. Some people really jumble with assembling things. Some people don't. So if you're one of the ones that jumbles around with things and is not particularly mechanically adept, just take it slow. Take it slow and you'll get it. You'll get it. So we've got a series of beveled screws. I'm betting that these are to attach the grip to the base. So we'll hold on to those because these look more like what we're dealing with here. I do have a magnetic tray over here, but magnetic tray has a bunch of stuff in it, so I'm just going to go more recklessly, put these out on the table here. All right, so what do we have? We have some longer screws, which appear to be equipped similarly to these. So we are going to assume that these 4 are used for this purpose. And that purpose is attaching this to here, because they seem to fit the job. I reserve the right to be incorrect. Unfortunately, like most people, I'm incorrect on a fairly regular basis. So, never say that I didn't admit that I am regularly incorrect, just like everybody else. All right, so we're just going to barely put that nut on. All right, and that should allow us to feed them through those grooves. Okay, and once they're on those grooves, again, this is not the final position. This is just a rough toss on to make sure that we are together in some way. So again, we'll pull this nut completely off. Oops. Man, speaking about mechanically adept, dropping some washers. In terms of mechanical adeptness, I do okay. I like to build things. I like to work on things. I generally do my own car work, with some exceptions. For example, our Tesla. We've got a 2013 Tesla, and I do not work on it. The systems are significantly different than any other vehicle that I've worked on. I'm a bit of a muscle car fan, though some muscle car fan I don't own one right now. But I have. I've owned, I believe we're up to 15 muscle cars in my life. Camaros, Firebirds, Mustangs, and Chargers are the cars that I've had. So I've done an enormous amount of work on cars, from rebuilding transmissions to major engine work. So working with nuts and bolts, it's really second nature to me, but working with tiny little ones, well, I have to draw from my experience of working on PCs for the last, 30 some odd years. When I was really young, my dad used to sell PCs, and he would give me a few dollars to assemble them and configure them. I mean, considering I was very young, like preteen, that was a big job. All right, so we've got this assembled. We are going to set it aside now, and we are going to open the base. And then after doing so, we're going to put it all together, and it's going to be loads of fun. So let us break out the base. You could say that this is the star of the show, possibly. All right, so we got a USB cable. USB cable, again, not that high quality. It's okay. We're just gonna toss that off to the side. Suction cups, not gonna use them, and really, you shouldn't either. These things, they're probably gonna work. I mean, if you're in a pinch, you have a limited space, okay, fine, but really, you need mounts. To really maximize the use of these things, you need mounts. You can look at some of my previous videos. I'll put them down in the description below. You can find information on my wooden mounts. They're not that great, but they only cost a few dollars and they work. They do the job. There's also great videos from other creators that have done aluminum ones if you have the capability or the access to machine shop, or just some good old-fashioned elbow grease. All right, so let's pull this thing out of here. It's heavy, but not as heavy as the previous Orion. We'll go ahead and yeet that out into my office to join the rest of the boxes, and let's take a look. So I'm going to do a standalone video comparing the Orion 1 with the Orion 2. Sorry, my Orion 1 is kind of dusty. But for now, you can see that, well, it looks like they may have gone, I might be wrong. I made a comment on a video earlier. Nope. Okay, the body, so the person said that the body of the Orion is plastic. And it does feel like it is plastic. So I was wrong on that. When we compare that to the Orion 1, this is metal. So my bad. I will go and correct myself there. So yeah, that's one reason why it's lighter. But I'm happy to say that even when I'm feeling, this feels like high quality ABS. Correct me if I'm wrong if you're a materials expert, but this looks like ABS. Let's take this thing over here. Oh, by the way, this is going to be a full-time collective. Using this. Just a sneak peek. Again, lots of garbage. All right. All right, so we've got basically the same layout as the original. There's a few extra things. They've made these a little bit more clicky, I think. These are much better shrouded. They kind of stuck out on the original. It almost looked like it was unfinished. And I was thinking of making some 3D printed covers that would screw down on these switches here. That appears to have been improved. Also, one thing that that they did that was something I recommended. I'm not saying that they did it because of my recommendation, but I'm going to try to, feel important here. It looks like they have made it so these are going to flex better. Because before, they just came out and then they would get all twisted up and it was terrible. So let's see. Ooh, those are tightened down, very tight, maybe for shipping. Let's draw those back a bit so that we can work with them. And I'm actually going to draw them back a bit further than I generally would. Making sure I've got the right size. I don't. See, look, I got to up my guessing game, folks. So here we are. I know what happened. Okay, so there's half a turn. That's feeling a bit better. Let's just do a full turn off the clutches. Yeah, then they'll just flop. Okay, full turn. We are going to tighten these back up because this is too floppy for me. All right, yeah, we don't like floppy stuff. Come on, guys. Yeah, it looks like fairly similar. But again, we'll compare all these to really have a good understanding of what kind of changes were made, okay? So don't worry about that. That's going to happen. All right, so let's take a quick once over. This is the same format as the Warthog plate. We have these 4 holes for mounting. My plate doesn't fit the full length, but it does use these mounting holes. I think I'm going to be making a new plate for my throttle out of steel that will match that, because I have these 2 drilled for it and then it comes back to about here, so it's plenty. But I think I'd really like to have a full length plate. Still, yeah, see, it seems like it's all the same. There's a bit of a bulge over on this side. That's for this wire guide. And then there are these 2 additions here. I believe that's for the startup panel, if you have it, which with the F16 edition, it's my understanding that you cannot run the starter panel. So that sucks, right? All right, so in another video I saw where they mounted this first. I don't think that that's the best idea. I think the best course of action is to mount the stick first and then mount this around it, so you can then, it's easier to bring it in and then align it so that it fits properly against these things. I don't know that there's a right or wrong way to go about this. We're just going to pretend that I'm right. It looks like we have 1 nut, 1 lock washer, and 1 washer. So that is going to be pretty simple. We're going to go screw through, probably this way, then washer, lock washer, nut. Just so that we're not gacking up the faces here. This is going to be positioned right here. Yep. And then from the look of it, we have bevels there, no bevels there, which is telling me that we're going to attach it just like that. So we're going to come in from this side and perhaps I overdid it a little bit. Quarter turn. There. I overdid it a little bit. Okay, we're going to start it with our fingers. If you've worked on cars before, you know what I'm talking about. Do not want to cross thread your bolts, so start them finger tight. Get those threads all the way engaged. And then follow up with the tool. Then finger tight there. And then we'll come back and tighten with the angle. You don't need, I've seen people that have really cranked down on these things. You don't need to crank down on them. You just need to make sure that they're tight enough so that they're not moving and that there's no movement in your stick. We are going to come and make another quarter turn there so that we can place it where we want it, okay? Now, we're going to come and use the final hole for that piece. Again, as we discussed previously, washer, lock washer, nut. Finger tight. We will grab there. Actually, you know what? I've already got a fancy wrench here that looks like it is not the right size. See, look at that, I spoke too soon. Way to grab the wrong wrench. Let's open up our generous package of tools here. I have the most enormous set of Allen keys from all the stuff that I assemble. It's entertaining. Not that one, this one. All right, so hold it stable here. Now this one you're going to want to tighten until you see that lock washer fully seated. And until you've got it nice and snug. All right, got it nice and snug. We now have our throttle axis. I believe that this, let's see, how do we, looks like the one we have to connect it with is the 3-prong. So we would bring that around and insert it all the way. Screw it down till it's snug and replace that in the retainer. Looks like it is most, let's see, trying to find the best way to get that in there. And all right, there we go. That seems to be pretty good. Okay, and this one apparently goes right in here. Make sure that we can fully extend it. Okay, it looks like we're okay. And like I mentioned, we are going to have to follow up and tighten these up a bit. We'll do half a turn here. Looks like we overdid it a little. 1/8 of a turn back. Another 1/8 of a turn. Okay, that's good enough. We will do the fine tuning on that later. Just for now, we will toss the wheels back in here. Okay, now let's find the other package. This appears to be our mounting bolts for our base. So let's get those out and get those prepped. We can see if we look here, we have beveled holes here, 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 and here. That is clearly where where they reside. So we will slide this in, and just for now we will line that up. We're going to lift this up on its end. The way we're going to do this is we're going to put the nut inside. I believe these also have a washer, but the washer is not going to fit into those. So we can position that in there. I'm going to move this over just to get it aligned so we can get that to bite in. Okay, that looks like that one is in. Yeah, that one's in. Okay. Put another one in. I will move it over into position. Just barely snugging those up. Make sure that doesn't fall. Okay, and then what we're gonna do when we're ready here is we want to align that track. And if you're one of those people who has the F18 grips as well as the F16, then learning this procedure is a good idea. Now, I think that you can probably run that F18 grip without removing the F16 frame. And if that is possible, which I'll test, I'm pretty sure it is, I would highly recommend that you don't remove the F16 frame, because that is going to make it a bit easier. I've got some washers here, but those washers would not fit in that groove, so I don't know exactly where they go yet. All right, so now we need to arrange things because we want that wheel to be aligned with this groove. So let's make that so. First things first, it looks like we're gonna have to move this inwards. Okay, so the way that I'll do that is I'm gonna loosen up these 4 bolts. Okay, and we're just going to push this inwards. All right, that's looking like it's pretty close. Let's just follow it through its arc. And it looks like we are in business. So I'm going to tighten one of them on the top, one of them on the back, or front and back. Oh, we had a bit of movement. Okay. Just tighten one of each just to lock them in place. And tighten the other. Now, I can see something that I've done wrong here. So let's correct that. In the words of Casey Liddell, one of the YouTubers that I get a kick out of following, his motto is, "I never said I was good at this." And it seems to be a situation for that right here. I'm just gonna center this first rail. You know what, I want to center it. Or move it all the way to one side, because I don't want it to stick out on that side, because that's the side that I'm on. So I'm going to lock it down here, and we're going to adjust it the right way. Apparently not the way that I was doing it. I'm sure that there's a video somewhere out there that I'm supposed to be watching to do this the right way, but I'm not. So you guys get the entertainment of watching me screw up. How much fun is that? So we'll loosen these up so that we can move them. Okay, we're gonna move this inwards until we see it line up. It's just about there. Okay, just for temporary purposes, we will keep grabbing the wrong Allen wrench. We will tighten this down, just one on each side, and then we're going to lower it into position so we can get it on to the rail. So we're gonna just loosen these just a little bit. Sometimes the mic gets in the way. just going to push this down. And since we are currently in the off detent, we will try to get it to ride properly inside of that detent. Yeah, we try to get it to ride in there. Okay. Now you're going to be able to change this thing's orientation this way by pushing them up and down like that. Okay, obviously we are not currently in the proper, see how we just changed that angle completely? Yeah, so you can, by raising one end and lowering the other, you can change the full angle on that, and that's going to change where you can get in and out of that off detent. You want to be able to get into that off detent because, you know, you want to be able to turn your engines off. Okay, that is actually in there pretty hard, so here we are. Let's make sure that we can still get into the, okay, let's tighten down this side a bit just to help it to be locked into place. I think that this end is fairly close to where we want it. We just need to figure out where this one will be. All right. We want it to ride on that all the way. Oh, look at that, we're out. So let's move it back here and let's change this until we do ride all the way to the middle detent. And we want to raise that up a bit so that that hits that afterburner detent, but we want it to remain up. We changed our angle everywhere. Okay, so we're gonna set it there just for a moment. Okay, and then we're going to loosen this up just a little bit because I want it to ride that rail the entire way, all the way back to idle. Yeah, like that. Does still go into there. Okay, looks like we're in shape here, so I'm going to go ahead and commit these changes. Let's just make sure that it, once we tighten that one up, we still, oh, we got some loose screws in the, we'll tighten those up. So let's lock these down and then we're gonna do some quick tests to make sure that we're, you know, one thing that I didn't like here was how much these stand up. I'm gonna really be annoyed with myself if I don't fix these. All right, folks, we've got it all together. We've adjusted it so that most of the pylons here, the verticals, are hidden. Everything has been tightened down and we have good function. I'll turn it this way so you can see. Goes into the idle, or not idle, into the off detent, up to idle. full mill to afterburner, back to mill, mill idle, down into off. So it looks like it functions well. So now let's get some impressions of the stick itself. Well, I think that in terms of this back cable here, this one is fairly tight, and I'm pretty sure I've got it in the right location here. I don't think that it goes like this. Yeah, that doesn't seem to fit. It's got to go in this way. But when I click that in there, this is just very, it doesn't have a lot of slack on it. But, you know, it can go all the way into afterburner, and we are rubbing a little bit here. Curious about that. I'd almost like to relocate this bracket here down to here and clip it there and just get it out of the way completely. So maybe that's something that I'll do. Wouldn't really be hard to make that happen. But for now, we'll leave it as is. Other first impressions, the throttle grip itself feels really good. Feels good in the hand. It's metal, so it's cold. And just because it's metal, again, I say this a million times, does not mean that it's good. Metal is great because it's strong. It lasts a long time. It's going to put up with wear well. But it doesn't mean that it is superior to a high quality plastic grip. So the time where it's gonna tell how well I adapt to this. Now, one thing is, I'll tell you one thing, in the winter, when it's 20 something degrees outside and you're in the basement, this thing gets cold, especially with on both hands. So maybe some flight gloves are in my future. Boy, that seems like that seems like one of those things you're like, what is that guy doing flying a simulator in real flight gloves? Well, maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe I will. It's not as much as of a cliche as maybe I thought, right? In usual fashion, Winwing's hats are very nice, very tactile. You feel that squish that you feel right there, and then it engages. And you feel that engagement. It has a tactile feedback, has a nice audible click. We'll move in with the mic here, and we'll move this one around just so that you can hear that tactile feel to these switches. The analog stick, not as tactile, but in general it feels pretty decent. Okay, let's take a look. There are a couple of buttons underneath. They've got a good feel to them. Here, listen to those. Of course my bird flaps right at the wrong time. Let's try that again. Okay, and the encoders, or these are not encoders, these are axes. These are actual potentiometers, I'm guessing. That feels like an encoder. So this one is an encoder, and I don't know if you can hear it. I gotta say, reaching this one right here, reaching that is not that easy. Yeah, that's just not, that is not an easy turn. The antenna, not bad. I can rotate that. But yeah, that is a not very nice feeling encoder there. All right, so I think that we've oogled and messed around and poked and prodded at this thing enough. Let's go do some flying. The first thing we're going to test out is going to be flying the Apache, since I had the extension already connected. In the review, I'll do the whole rig and attach my collective to the flight seat and whatnot. Until then, we'll just fly from the mount in my office chair. As you can see, we're still testing out the VKB T-rudders as well. Watch out for that review in the next couple weeks. Right now, the accuracy rivals any stick I've ever used. It's really good. I haven't got all the buttons assigned or the axes adjusted yet. The only thing I've done was assign the axes and fly. I fully admit that I'm quite rusty in DCS. I've been playing other things and working on other projects, waiting for all this hardware to get here so that I could test it together. One thing that I'll point out initially, the center of the gimbal with the extensions and one set of the cam and spring per gimbal with the dampers is very loose. You get the appropriate amount of resistance further out in the axis range, but in the center it's really loose. Like there needs to be better pre-tension on the springs or something like that. I haven't decided if I like the center looseness. One could say that it makes it a bit easier to do fine movements, but at the moment the jury is definitely out. Now on to the aircraft that these sticks are designed to simulate, the F-16. This aircraft has been my favorite since I was a young kid and watched the movie called Iron Eagle in 1987. It came out the year before that, but we didn't see it in the theater. I purchased this aircraft when it went on pre-sale, but admittedly, I haven't played it very much. At one time, I was able to take off, land, refuel, use basic air-to-air weapons, and some of the air-to-ground weapons, but I've forgotten most of that now. I got really enamored with the Apache and spent almost all of my time flying it. With the purchase of this new setup, I'm committing to learn the Viper to the point that I'm confident in flying even on multiplayer servers. I'll take you all through the whole learning process from initial flights, to getting your control assignments set up, to SRS, to getting required mods to fly your first multiplayer missions. I'll probably be terrible the whole time, but hey, like Casey Liddell says, I never said I was good at this. Now, back to the subject at hand, the stick and throttle. The loose center is certainly not being caused by the extension. I'm using the biggest spring that comes with their $50 spring and cam kit. $50. Yeah, we'll get to that in the full review. Even with the biggest springs and a bit of damping from the dampers, it's still loose in the center. Again, as you progress in the arc of the gimbal, it does feel better. The throttle has the same hitchy feel that the original Orion had when you first got it. Basically, when you start to use pressure to start moving the stick, you can feel it kind of break away to move forward. And I'm not using a ton of damper either. I'm going to leave it as it is for right now. I want to provide you all with the comparison and the grip swap video, as my other throttle, the Orion 1, has already been re-greased. This video will come out before the full review. This hitchy feel can be resolved by cleaning off the factory grease and applying a good dose of Nyogel 767A, which I'll also demonstrate for you in that video. All in all, this looks like it's going to be a very fun review. I'm going to really enjoy beating this thing up and telling you all how it handles it. I hope you enjoyed the video. It's been a lot of fun to produce. I absolutely love exploring new hardware and testing it out for you. We've got a ton of videos lined up for the next few months, so it's a great time for you to hit that subscribe button and comment below to interact with the community. I really do appreciate it when you subscribe. It really is the single most important way that you can support the channel and this project. I'll be posting the State of the Channel 2023 video soon, and in that video we'll be announcing our 2023 giveaways and also some new merch, so stay tuned. And as always, fly safe, have fun, and have a great day.